So someone wrote a comment the other day on one of my videos because I mentioned that I had broken my nose before, and they asked me how I'd done it. And I realized upon being asked this question that I really don't have that much experience with breaking bones or seeing bones being broken, and half of my experience with that isn't even my bones. The only bone I've broken is my nose twice. The first time I was 7 years old, and my younger brother was 5, and if you line up a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, you're going to notice that the 5-year-old's forehead is very, very close to the 7-year-old's nose, and that is bad news for both of them. And so basically what happened is me, my brother, and probably like 4 or 5 of our friends, we were having like a little shindig at my house, and we were all running around playing tag in the basement, and my mom had already said, don't run around in the basement, don't run too fast, you're gonna get hurt. And as always, you pretty much did the standard, fuck you, mom, to that's what you do as a kid. That's normal, that's natural. Don't feel averse to something like that. Just let it swell up in you. Let that childish sense of animosity towards your authority figures just, dwell there. That's healthy. So Mom told me not to run in the basement, didn't give a shit, decided to run anyway, and so we played a huge game of tag. And to understand my basement at the time, you have to understand that it had a main area, and then it had an unfinished area. And the unfinished area had concrete, and we used to play hockey back there. It was a ton of fun, and you could walk in an entire circle around the basement. Now, there was a door on the left side and on the right side where you could go from the finished part to the unfinished part. So essentially, it was like, imagine a circle, half of it unfinished, half of it finished, kind of like that. And so we were playing tag around there. It made for an ideal place to play tag, so you could never get kind of hemmed back into a corner, and so you always have a way to escape, and you really had to work hard to try and tag someone. And so we were all having a great time playing, and lo and behold, about, I don't know, like 15 minutes into our game, probably only a few minutes before we were going to take a break anyway, go get our Capri Sun on, if you know what I'm saying, and I am running down one side of the unfinished area, and my brother was kind of hiding behind the heater, one of those big metal cylindrical heaters, just trying to bide his time, and neither of us were it, ironically enough, and he was just kind of playing the strategy of, waiting around, letting me and my friends wear out the guy who was the it person, and he was just kind of playing it sly, like guerrilla tag warfare, so to speak, and I ran right by him, and as for some unknown reason, the second that I started to sprint by, he decided to sprint out on his own, and of course, because he was behind this big cylindrical thing, he couldn't see me and I couldn't see him, and we just collided right there, just bam, right in the middle of my basement, and immediately my nose, if you've watched some of my vlogging videos, you probably can tell, but you may not be able to tell, I don't have a very high quality camera, but my nose is really, really angular, and that's not natural, obviously. I don't have a squared off bridge of my nose, from birth. It's because I had to get it shaved off right there, because when I broke my nose, I basically broke it in half at the very top, and so it kind of just crushed everything in my nose, and this was not a minor break. This was a big deal kind of thing, and it kind of cracked my nose. I mean, the only way I can explain it is it cracked it in half, pretty much. Horizontally, and immediately my nose just starts pouring blood. Now, words cannot properly describe how much blood there was. Like, imagine a movie amount of blood, and not even like a movie just like, oh my god, that's a Gladiator amount of blood spurting from his neck. Imagine like a comedy movie that's overdoing it on blood, and then multiply that by 3. Like, I was sitting there as a 7-year-old being like, holy shit, I did not know that there was this much red stuff in my body. I'm gonna die. I am going to die. And immediately my brother started freaking out, and he was like rubbing his forehead kind of, but he wasn't hurt, obviously, and then obviously all of my friends run around and they see me standing there, just blood pouring out of my nose, and it didn't hurt. Well, it did hurt very, very badly, but I was in shock because it had just happened. I'd never broken a bone before, and between me and my mom upstairs, I had to run through the finished area, which meant that I was going to get blood all over the carpet, and of course, it doesn't make any sense, but my first thought was, oh shit, my mom's going to be so mad when I run upstairs and I get blood all over everything. And so I did my best to run upstairs with my hands under my nose, which was not going to work. Like, you may as well grab yourself like a baseball cap and then run under a waterfall and try and catch all the water to keep it from landing in the pool below. That's not going to work. And that's basically what it was like. I was covered head to toe in blood. I'm sure some of my friends got blood on them because it was just spurting out of there. It was almost like it was not even a hose, but one of those hoses that has the little lever that you can press to kind of funnel it and channel it into a stronger stream. That's what it was like. Someone had a hose up there, pushing it down, putting their thumb over it, really getting a good spray. And so I'm running through the finished part of my basement. The whole time, my only thought in my head is, oh shit, I'm going to be in trouble, of course, because that's what kids do. And the whole way, just getting blood all over the place, ruined the carpet. And I get upstairs, and immediately my mom sees it, and she starts freaking out, and she gets me and all of my friends in the car. And at the time, my grandma was headed to my house to hang out with us and have dinner. And she lives about 3.5 hours away, so it's no trifling matter for her to drive up. And so, luckily, we were passing her. We were going through an intersection on the way to the hospital with my mom, myself, my brother, and then all of my friends in there. And so it was a packed car. And in the middle of an intersection, we passed my grandma. And so we pretty much just stopped right there at, I think, a green light. Hopefully it was a red light. It would have been a lot more inconsiderate. But, I had a broken nose and I was bleeding all over the car, so it wasn't my number one priority at the time. And they got out in the middle of the road and jumped over into my grandma's car. And my grandma took all them back while I went to the hospital. And it was just a big ordeal. And so that was the first time that I broke my nose. Now, the second time that I broke my nose was in 7th grade, and it was... I have to say this one was better. It didn't hurt because it pretty much just broke along the same crack that there was before, I think. I don't really know. I'm no doctor, but it felt like it was the same kind of break. And of all the sports that I'd played, it was in middle school, and I played hockey. I played really competitive ice hockey. I was wrestling at the time. I was doing a lot of, aggressive sports where you expect to get hurt. I had played football that year and the year before. And of all the sports to get hurt in, I get hurt in basketball. And the reason it happened is because I was going up for a rebound, and this kid went up there in the middle of practice, mind you. This is a freaking practice with a bunch of 14, 13-year-old kids. And he jumps up there and grabs the ball. And instead of just bringing it back down, and no one was contending with him because it's freaking practice, who gives a shit? Seriously, dude. And he starts flailing his arms around like a maniac. All I can just it was like he had just taken a fat hit of PCP, and then he thought the ball was somehow containing his soul, and he had to keep anyone else from touching it, otherwise he would go to hell or burn or something like that. You cannot describe the madness and the lunacy that was in this person's eyes when you looked at him. And he swung his arm once towards me, and I kind of dodged it, and then he kind of stutter stepped back towards me again and swung his arm even further out, and it cracked me right in the nose. And immediately, once again, the torrent poured forth from my nose, and they pretty much had to cancel the rest of practice on that side of the court just because there was so much blood. They had to have 2 janitors come out and fix it. So good part of that story is I got the rest of the day of school off, so that was nice. We had practice during school, so I got to take off the last 3 hours. Bad news is I had a broken nose, so that kind of sucked. But anyway, those are my 2 only broken nose, broken bone stories. Hope you enjoyed them. If you do like these kind of story things, please let me know, and I'll continue to, think of things in my life that are, not remarkably boring and tell them to you. That's it. Love you.